Welcome to Talking Targaryen. Today we're talking about House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 7, The Red Sowing. This video slash podcast will have spoilers through Season 2, Episode 7, but no future spoilers. We don't watch the next time on, we haven't read Fire and Blood, and we haven't watched the leaked Season 2 finale. I'm Gil, I'm here with Daniel, say hello.
Hello.
And Adam.
Wait, did you say we haven't watched the leaked finale?
We're going to go with that.
I gotta go.
I don't think the whole thing leaked. From what I understand, about half of it leaked through a bunch of clips posted to TikTok. Daniel, I know you're on TikTok like 24/7, so I assume you've seen it, but you're just gonna have to pretend. No,
he's always filming himself dancing, like in public places.
All right, well, let's go into overall thoughts. Oh, and I should say, by the way, well, I was going to say I should announce that we're doing this live, but I guess if you're listening to this, you already know that. But I guess it's just a fun fact if you're listening to this after the fact. We did this live Friday night, probably the prime time for people on YouTube watching live streams. Dan, I'll give you your overall thoughts on the episode.
Snooze fest. I did not like it. I was okay. I had the same reaction as last episode, and I decided, screw it. I'm not gonna be like all ambivalent about stuff anymore. Just snooze fest. I'm annoyed by a lot of stuff in the show. There were things I liked, but overall, I'm just bored.
Well, Adam, what about you?
Okay, this is how
you always know it's good when it starts.
Yeah. This is how you differentiate between the intellectual Game of Thrones watcher and the layman's Game of Thrones watcher. Daniel's complaint is that it was boring. My complaint has nothing to do with the pace. No. Hold on.
It doesn't have to do with pace. Doesn't have to do with pace.
Okay, technically you didn't say that. That's true. I wasn't bored. I was annoyed by the same things that have been annoying me, which is just like plot contrivances and like such a bunch of convenient stuff happening all at the same time. It just makes me feel like not only are the writers short on time and they're trying to cram a lot of stuff in, but they're not that creative because they just cut corners and make things work out in a convenient way. That said, I wasn't especially bored. It felt like the episode before this one. It felt like episode 6 part 2. That's what it felt like to me.
I want to say that's why I'm bored. Like, those are the exact reasons. It's just a bunch of stuff that's happening now. And like, I don't feel the stakes, and I don't feel that like attached to anything that's happening.
You know,
and
from
it just
what
feels lame.
I haven't done like a deep dive into what the discourse is on this episode, but from my brief look around the web, do people call it that anymore? My brief look around
the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
I was going to some www.coms, and my impression is people love this episode. Yeah, I think I agreed with pretty much everything you guys said. I would say it wasn't especially worse than previous episodes.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I liked, like I normally do. Like in terms of the percentage of the episode I enjoyed, I think it was pretty standard. But my issues with the show, in this case, applied to a scene that was pretty pivotal. A climactic scene for the episode and a climactic scene for the season as a whole. So because that didn't work for me, I almost punished this episode more than I would a typical one. So plenty I enjoyed. Like I said, percentage-wise, I probably enjoyed the majority of the episode, but I took some pretty strong issue with some of the stuff that happened, but I'm not going to say what it is right now, so you're going to have to listen and wait till we get there in our recap. Anything else you guys want to say before we go into our recap?
I like that there's a lot more dragon stuff happening.
I like the dragon stuff.
Daniel, don't you like dragons?
I like the dragons. And
they look fantastic.
They look fantastic.
Mostly.
And they sound really cool.
I was thinking that too during the episode. The sound is incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all that. Well, let's go into
those like purring sounds. Like,
yeah, I did come up with that on my own too, though. The idea of the sound being cool.
That's true.
I'm really impressed, Daniel. Well, let's go into the recap. As always, I've curated the recap. So we're going to go essentially location by location to help make sense of the episode. As much as we can, at certain points, we'll jump back and forth just because chronologically it'll make more sense that way.
You're
Unlike
gonna make more sense of the locations than the writers did.
That's right. Now we're not going to be able to do the music and the transitions we normally do between locations just because this is live and because it's so late in the week and I just really want to get this episode out. And I imagine there's half the audience is probably like, "Oh my God, thank God. I don't need to hear this every time they go somewhere." You smell that? You smell that
Oh well, we can
dragon?
still do that. That doesn't take
Yeah.
any preparation.
All right,
You
we
just
could
won't have
still
the
do that.
accompanying photo.
True. Or the music.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to our favorite spooky corner of Westeros.
Smell that.
Oh, is that thunder?
Yeah.
What
Okay,
was the thing we smell when we're there?
Ectoplasm.
Something ectoplasm.
Oh, from the ghosts.
That can only mean one thing. We're in Harrenhal. So, Daemon meets with Lord Tully, that little kid that's taken over for his grandpa, who, what's her name? Alice killed last episode. Daemon's talking to this kid.
That's just super heavily implied, right?
Correct. Yeah, that has not been explicitly stated.
But
It's
I
heavily
bet.
implied.
Well, you listen to like the podcast by the
And
the
yes,
official podcast.
On the official podcast,
Did they give the
explicitly
answer?
stated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that she killed him. Yeah. Damon's very dismissive with this kid. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, why don't you pledge fealty to me? Give me an army. And the little Tully's like, bro, you've been doing barbarities in the queen's name. Look, our house, we did pledge fealty to Queen Rhaenyra. We're going to uphold our oath. But here, there's one problem. The River Lords, they all hate you. You're a scumbag. He brings him out in front of the River Lords. And Tully announces, look, I'm a kid. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. The best thing I can do is just uphold what my grandfather said, his oath to Viserys to abide by his chosen heir, Rhaenyra. So I'm going to do that. He's very insulting toward Daemon, very dismissive in front of everybody. And he announces that justice will be done. And he tells Daemon he has to kill Willem Blackwood. That's the guy that Daemon essentially deputized to go target children, women, and force their rivals to bend the knee. So Daemon does it. He beheads the guy. And there you go. So I don't know. What did you guys think? Yeah, go ahead.
So I actually did really like this scene. When
Same.
I was complaining, like this scene worked for me. It was awesome. Again, the same thing though of just like I feel like if this scene had happened in early Game of Thrones, it still would have been like way cooler. But in general, this was a good scene. I really liked the kid. I thought it was really cool seeing him stand up to Daemon, and I felt a lot of tension. It was awesome.
Yeah, I also like that he has the wherewithal to understand. Like, I'm a child. I don't know how to navigate everything that's going on here. So I'm just going to abide by the decisions that were made before I took over.
Well, that's the public argument that he's making. But I mean, clearly he's like a political savant.
Yeah.
What makes you say that? How do you know?
He showed some stones.
I mean, what he did worked perfectly. It basically, he didn't create a mess. He knew that it seems like fundamentally he does believe in obeying the oath that his house made. But obeying that oath would be suicide if he's unable to actually unite the other river lords to follow their oaths to his house. But he knows the only way to do that is to have some show of power on his end, which first of all works out perfectly because he basically gave the king an order and he followed through on it. He publicly embarrassed him and shamed him in front of all those people to show, hey, I'm still a man of the Riverlands. I'm not just like bending the knee because I have no other choice. And I don't think it all worked out just by luck or by accident. I think, and you see when he's speaking and like giving his speech and doing all this stuff in front of his men, he looks like perfectly suited to it.
That's a good point. Even if he is simply sticking by the oath because it preceded him, even if that's true, which to your point, maybe it's not, that is actually the way he wants to go. And it's a good excuse to do it, but he executed it perfectly. And he recognized that I need to tear Daemon down a peg in front of everybody else to sort of reacquire the power that he's trying to take away from me.
Yeah, it was genius the way he did it. But one complaint, like Damon, I guess I can buy it. Damon just does a lot of dumb, rash things. How does he not plan ahead of time? Like, he doesn't talk with this guy for a few minutes, strategizing, like, hey, there's all these people here who hate me. I got a bunch of their, like, kids and wives murdered and stuff. Like, maybe we should strategize a bit and figure out how we make sure they bend the knee. Like,
Well,
no thinking, planning.
He was blindsided where they kind of came in and said, hey, the River Lords are waiting. You need to go outside right now. Now, there was a flaw where he assumed that this kid was going to be easy to push around and was going to go along with whatever he wanted, and he was wrong about that. So I think it's fair to say that there was an oversight and Damon screwed up, but to me, that's not a bad writing oversight. That's a character flaw oversight.
Maybe it probably is, but even then, Damon already knew that those lords. I mean, they had previously said, some of them had said they would never kneel to him. Like they said that. So this generally should have been an issue he was planning for.
Right. It does feel a little bit video gamey, where it's like, well, the quest said that if I get Tully on my side, everybody else will fall in line. And so he was expecting the River Lords have fallen in line. The way that King's Landing normally does with the people of King's Landing. You know, we parade this kid through the streets, this dead kid. Boo, boo, boo. The people of King's Landing are on your side. But it didn't work that way for Damon. I will also say, I don't think he hesitated at all in dispensing justice and cutting that guy's head off. But I also don't think he was too happy about it. He has sort of an odd, distressed look on his face when he does it. So I think what's happening here is, I have no choice. I have to go through with this.
He got outplayed.
Definitely. Well,
He underestimated the opponent.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's like,
and he had like a smirk at first that said, like, he was not happy about the situation, but I think he was also like, all right, I respect this guy.
I agree with that. Yeah. And I think there were a few other things going on too. One, you're right, he got outplayed. He's not happy about that. Two, he already lost the respect of the River Lords, but he's also lost, if there's anybody among them, like even the Blackwoods, he's going to lose their respect too. Because now he had this guy do these atrocities on his behalf, and then in the end he stabbed him in the back. So he doesn't even have a sort of mafia mob style respect where let's do evil but be respectable while we're at it. I also think possibly Alice has been trying to push him, we think, and it seems, toward a more moral, trying to reacquaint him with morality. I think some of these dreams are his guilty past coming to bear. So I think that's also an element here. He now has to kill somebody who did these terrible things in his name. For doing those things, the guy probably deserved to die, but by that logic, so does Damon. So I think all those things are in play here.
I like the kid saying, like, you did those things because you wanted to.
Yeah, he calls out, like, Blackwood tries to use a defense. I was just doing what Damon told me to. Until he's like, yeah, you wanted to do that stuff, and this was just an excuse. You piece of garbage.
All right, so on my usual, I'm the official face analyzer of the podcast. The casting for the head of the Blackwoods, who did all those, who did barbarities, as you said, like, they cast him well because he had that look of, kind of reminded me of the person in Braveheart who, spoilers for Braveheart, which came out like 30 years ago, probably more. The one who like ends up betraying William Wallace. You just like, there's certain people in these like royalty settings where you can tell which ones look like kind of skeevy. Like if they got like too close to Sauron, they would turn into Wormtongue.
All right. Well, they did a good job casting him, but I guess we're not going to see him again. Adam, you would have been great at this DOS game back in like the late 80s, early 90s called Facemaker. I used to play that as a kid, Adam. You would have crushed it.
I mean, I liked in Mario 64 where you could play with his nose and stuff.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dreams, Damon has another one. He sees a goat bleeding, and then he finds Viserys looking just as he did before his death, and all rotten on one half of his face. He's holding the crown. And he basically tells Damon, I never wanted this crown. It crushes whoever wears it. And I'm like, I crushed you. I don't know if it's like, it crushes everybody. But he says to Damon, "You always wanted it. Do you want it still?" Now, one thought on this, I kind of joked about it a second ago, but in all seriousness, I don't think it's true that the crown necessarily crushes everyone. But I think that the subconscious is a lesson learning machine, but it's a very binary and extreme one. For example, if someone betrays you, then from that point on in your life, you can't trust anybody. Everybody betrays you. You see your brother crushed by the crown crushes all who wear it. That's the lesson you take away from it. But who wants to jump in on this? What else do you read from this dream here?
What I want to know is, are these dreams a manifestation of things he's feeling, or are they stories that Alice is incepting him with? And
I have
is this if this is something Alice is doing to him? We were talking about this with some of the other visions or nightmares. Is it almost a challenge to be like, do you still want this? And like, is almost like either to strengthen his resolve or get him to stop what he's doing. Could go either way.
Yeah, I've read it from the beginning as these are things that are in Damon's subconscious, and perhaps Alice is pulling them out of his subconscious and forcing him to confront them. But I don't want to get meta about it, but I can't imagine the writers would do this without it saying something about his character. Like, I think we are meant to look at these dreams and see it as Damon wrestling with his guilty conscience.
Right.
I mean, the thing is, even if she is manifesting these things just out of thin air, and these are not things that Damon is struggling with, this will make him struggle with them. And so far, to me, it does seem like his reactions say that these things are true. Like, for example, when we saw Rhaenyra, the young Rhaenyra, a few episodes ago, and she tells Daemon how you screw everything up and leave me behind to clean up the mess. To me, his expression says what I'm hearing is a truth that I've been denying. So whether these things are truly coming from his subconscious or not, I think they're still telling us essentially the same thing about his character.
And I guess considering how simple-minded I believe the writers to be, I think you can't go wrong going with the simpler explanation. So,
just regarding the writers, it feels like a lot of episodes now of these visions and stuff without like,
yeah, he's kind of, it's reaching the point where he's just like bumbling around all season.
Yeah, and like, when is the last time Damon
It's-
like did something?
Yeah.
I feel like it was the beginning of the season when he ordered the killing of all those people.
Cut off Willem Blackwood's head this very episode.
He was ordered to do it by somebody else. Like, Damon's
It's
not
like-
doing anything.
It's like when Arya was just like bumping around in the House of Black and White for a whole season, which at first could have been cool because I always found the religious elements and like any hint at the mystical in that series was fascinating. It just had no payoff. But this has even less mystery to it than that did. So at first I was kind of forgiving on the like Harrenhal Daemon plot line, but now I agree with Daniel. It's kind of dragging.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way almost from the beginning, so I just kind of stopped complaining about it. Because to me, it just feels like sort of a cheap way of telling us what's on his mind. And in terms of dream sequences, I wish they were weirder and more interesting, but I find them to be generally pretty straightforward. At times, I think they've been very visually striking. Like when you saw Rhaenyra's head on the ground talking to him, that was really interesting. But to me, it's sort of lost that intrigue. And yeah, I know I'm ready for him to get out of there.
And just to complain a little bit more, it's like everything else is moving so quickly, or like people are teleporting all over the place, and Damon's just like stumbling around this castle in his dreams.
I guess he had to just sit around waiting for Grover to die. And that's why Alice is like this critical character. But even Alice, there's nothing wrong with her character in and of itself, but it suffers the same problem as like the Missaria character, where you just have a mystery woman show up out of nowhere, who suddenly has like world-changing impact on the plot and on these characters who should not be so easily pushed over.
Right. Hey, you need to assassinate somebody in the royal family? I could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to sneak into King's Landing and meet with Alicent? Oh, I can do that.
You need
Oh, you
to
need to
spread
find a
some
bunch of dragon
discontent.
raiders. Oh, I can do that.
You need to go sow discontent. Suddenly, next to the scene, there's a riot happening.
Man, I can't wait. I cannot wait to
Just
talk about the
lazy.
Dragon Riders thing.
Well, at least they throw in a monologue about how terrible her life is every few episodes to make her, fully fledged and 3-dimensional. All right,
Like,
wait,
she
we're 1 for
suddenly-
1 because
she-
Yeah, go ahead.
Rhaenyra thinks she has like full undying loyalty from this person because she got that person out of her own prison cell, and now suddenly you trust your life with her. And like they keep reminding us how or they did it once. They reminded us it's only been a few weeks since all this started.
But didn't you listen to her
like-
monologues? How could you hear those monologues and then not trust
It's like
her?
it's like someone helped the president avoid stepping in gum. Oh, do you want to be the new Secretary of State?
Yeah, it might be a step up, from our current.
Oh, whoa,
I don't know
we're
anything
live.
about
We're
politics,
live.
I think if you generically just criticize the government, you're okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, we're 1 for 1 so far. We love the scene where Damon killed Nolan Blackwood. We were a little bit iffy on the dream sequence. So, hey, 1 for 1, it's not bad. Let's visit Rhaena at the Vale. They're all preparing to leave for Pentos.
We haven't
But as
seen
all-
the moon hole in a while. I was gonna say, you smell that moon hole, but we don't because they're not showing it to us.
Adam would love to smell the moon hole.
I had a funny joke I wanted to say, but we're live, and I would want to get your guys' opinion afterward if I should say it or not. Here, I'll save
Save
that
it for
Patreon.
Yeah.
Yes, check out the link in the description to our Patreon. We'll do like a 12-second special tonight where I'll tell you the joke I was thinking of just now. All right, we're at the Vale. Smell that moon hole. All right, so if you remember last episode, Rhaena's going to take all the kids to Pentos, all of Rhaenyra's kids, to keep them safe and everything. But she had found, she smelled a dragon afoot, and she wants her own dragon because she feels left out. So Rhaena and everybody, they're all preparing to go to Pentos, but instead she runs off toward the dragon. All right,
Now,
let's go to... All right, go ahead.
Shouldn't every member of the royal family like have someone with them at all times?
Wait. Also, like, she just, like, it seemed like she's sneaking away, but it's, like, literally the instant she steps outside the wall, somehow everybody else is 100 yards further, and then she just runs away.
Yeah, I know. And the people that are in the wagon, like, in the distance, no one's like, hey, where's Rhaena? She just...
And like, okay, why can't this is some of the stuff that bothers me about this show, because they know the types of like nerds that are watching this are paying attention to every little detail, because like we're the people who are watching an episode of Game of Thrones or early on and then listening to like probably 8 hours of podcasts all combined between episodes, waiting for the next one, reading Reddit threads endlessly, watching Alt Shift X on YouTube talk about it. And like, why it wouldn't take up any more time in like the limited time they have in the episode to just make this thing happen in a more believable way. Have someone
Adam,
call after her, or
let
something.
let me defend what the writers would say. You're a perfect example of how fans ruin shows.
Oh,
they
yeah,
just
blame the
analyze it
fans.
too much.
Yeah.
You call
The fans,
yourself a fan of the show.
They love the story too much. They won't just lap up the lick spittle that we throw at them.
I think what's happening with this show, like the times when we are frustrated, I think a lot of it stems from this issue of there are things that are going to happen later in the season, but they don't want it to feel like they came out of nowhere. So instead, they're like, let's just point the camera at Ulf a couple of times, like in episode 4 and maybe again in episode 6. Let's just point the camera at Rhaena so it doesn't seem like she just came out of nowhere with a dragon. But they're trying to balance so many different stories that it's like that's literally all they do. It's like point the camera at them for a second.
They're starting from
hey,
the
look,
end.
it was
and
set
working-
up.
They're starting from the end and working backwards, and like they're just cramming in little snippets to make it feel like the dots are connected.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're just putting more dots, but they're not actually connecting them.
And the thing is too, like, oh no, go ahead.
No, it's a separate thing. So go ahead.
This wasn't part of the story where Rhaena gets a dragon. It was apparently improvised in the scene where Rhaena's like, "What if I go back and get that dragon?"
You're joking.
You're
No, I'm just
joking.
kidding.
Yeah. And then she made out with the dragon.
Right. That's because I was referencing that Rhaenyra and
Mysaria.
the kiss was apparently improvised.
The actress finds out she's not in any more episodes because she like goes to Pentos or whatever. She's like, no, I have to avoid this. I'm gonna run
Yeah.
and get a
They
dragon.
keep shooting the scene.
You
And
know
she's
what?
like, now I'll get the dragon. Like,
it's
Rhaena, you
better-
can't do that.
It's better that than what Jussie Smollett tried to preserve his role on Empire. That's as edgy. That's as edgy as we'll get on this, right?
Why does that come up in every? That was the last live stream I did was on Hack the Movies. We're talking about Alien Covenant, and Jussie Smollett is in that. So it just seems like every live stream I do, that's got to come up. And not
He's
that I even
the,
know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
What's the word they use in the Deadpool movie where it's like a certain
The
person?
anchor.
He's the anchor of our universe. Like it or
All
not.
right, let's. Anything else in the veil?
I just want to respond to Nighthawk, who's Night Walk. Daniel said it was Moon Hole a few episodes ago. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't
we're
doubt
pretty
him on
confident.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should go back and read the source material.
All right, you guys want to go to King's Landing?
Why not?
Smell that. Rat catchers. Resident.
No,
Gone.
you don't-
They're long gone now. It's fish. We smell
go-
fish and rats.
Yeah, we go through that. No, we don't even smell fish anymore because Rhaenyra is feeding everybody. Remember, everyone loves her now.
Oh, so we smell bread and cheese and
And rats.
It smells great,
Rats.
I would
Yeah.
say. King's Landing. Alicent has a wound on her arm, which I actually didn't notice in the previous episode. So I knew she saw blood on her arm after the riot where the night guard cut off that guy's hand. I thought that was just blood from the guy. Apparently, she got cut during the riot, and it's similar to the cut that she gave Rhaenyra many episodes ago back in season 1. A little parallel there. She
Wait,
decided.
what was the context for that? I didn't remember
Okay, so
that.
this is after Luke cuts out Aemon's eye. Alicent is very upset, so she attacks Rhaenyra and cuts her arm.
Mm.
And then Viserys wonderfully solves everything by yelling at them to just get along.
They all lived happily.
Stop
ever. Yeah.
It's like, it's like a dad driving on a road trip, just
Yeah.
reaching his arm back there, being like,
Don't make me come back there.
So Alicent, she has no place here anymore, right? She was on the council. Aemon was like, "What are you doing on the council? Get out of here.
Yeah.
You're fired."
Get your dad over.
Yeah.
I want to talk to him.
oh, wait, still no Otto this
I
season.
know. I'm waiting
know.
for Otto. He does get a mention. Though. We'll get to that.
He has to show up in like the finale, right?
Maybe. We'll see.
They better point the camera at him a few times, or else we're going to forget who he is.
It's just photos of him, like as the way you would send out a postcard of like different places in Westeros along his journey, like posing next to a sign like 200 miles to the Vale.
So she wants to get away from things for a while. She decides to go out to the Kingswood, brings her guard with her, Sir Rickard, and nobody else.
No retinue.
That's right. So let's. I'm thinking let's stick with Alicent for a bit and just finish out her storyline before we move on. Okay.
A retinue is a group of advisors, assistants, or others accompanying an important person.
Sorry, I tried to hit the mute button, but he moved too fast. So later on, we see her in the Kingswood. She's making camp. Rickard's like, "When do you plan on going back to the city?" And she says, "I'm not certain yet that I do. Good night." Next day, steps into some water, wearing a white gown dress. She lays there with her eyes closed.
A
which
white gown dress.
We know it's called a white dress hole.
Yeah.
We know she likes to do this because remember she went in the bath a few episodes ago. And
I was
closed her
thinking
eyes.
about the bath thing.
Yeah, and then she looks up.
Well, actually, no. This is good contrast because like here she's free, whereas in the bath she was all paranoid.
That's true.
And in the bath she was like naked and vulnerable, and here she's in the water with the gown dress on. It's like she feels safer and more free simultaneously.
And then she looks up. Go ahead, Daniel.
Snooze fast. Like, I used to like the Allison character. She's just like, she's not done anything in like
Actually likes-
episodes.
I kind of like this scene.
Yeah, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
I was
first
just
of
bored.
all-
I just don't know where is it leading anywhere. Like,
What would you
Yes,
rather? She has a bunch of
yes.
dreams that just explain everything.
Yes.
You complain no matter what, Daniel.
Like
You
she
know?
finally did. This is the only thing she's done all season. This is the only thing she was able to do.
That's
Cut
fair.
her some slack.
That's fair. She did something. All right.
Yeah. She
There
did
you
something very
Wait.
courageous. She spent her entire life as essentially like a political prisoner.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good. That is a very good point.
And,
The other
and
thing
there was
I want to
also
give you
it was
credit.
packed with symbolism. I just unlocked 2 aspects of symbolism.
I'm impressed. Oh wait,
Symbolism
another
unlocked.
thing
Yeah.
I want to give you credit for, Adam. I think Adam has been obsessed with the rats this whole season.
Yes.
And we got some payoff on the rat thing. Well, not payoff, but more hints about the rat thing. Allison says everything here is unclean, something like that, and then we see a rat scurry
I'm
past.
telling you, yes, it climbs up and starts nibbling on some food or something, right? Or is that a different scene?
I only remember
I think
seeing
it was
a rat
just
once.
this scene. So yeah, the rats. You guys all laughed at me. You called me names. You insulted me. But I think the rats are going to prove important, even if it remains some kind of subtle thing you have to look for. There's definitely something to the rats. It's not just like this thing that happens to be there.
I do think it's too soon to say you're vindicated.
Even
Well, to be
maybe,
clear,
yes.
Adam's claim wasn't just that there's something happening with the rats. Adam's claim was that that's the reason Otto was upset about the rat catchers being killed.
that was a speculation, but I will say the rats are somehow sentient, I think, and somehow beaming information back to Laris.
No, that is reasonable. Wait, you
was
don't believe?
Wait, the ideas were that the rats are sentient?
Yeah, warging. No. Laris is probably warging into the rats to spy on people. That I totally agree.
I wouldn't say probably, but it is some. Here's my guess. I bet you the book implies something like that may or may not be happening, but it's never known for sure.
Or somebody's doing it.
I bet that's what it is. It's an ambiguous thing, but there might be something supernatural going on with the rats. I think they represent a force that is likely malevolent and has to do with the spread of information.
I bet
That's what
in
I'll
the
say.
next
Like in all
episode-
seriousness, I think that's what it has to do. It has to do with somehow with the spread of information and people being seen without their knowledge.
In all seriousness, I think in the next episode, Allison's gonna have a dream where she speaks to a full-sized rat, and the rat has Laris's voice, and that's gonna be the big reveal.
And that's that rat's name. Gil. He comes from under the sewers. He has some turtles.
Splinter.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Well,
We solved it.
Gil, do you want to regain control?
Alicent looks up from the water and sees a bird in the sky. Maybe that gives her an idea, and she starts swimming back to shore.
She's gonna warg into the bird.
It's a 3-eyed raven.
Jeez.
You shouldn't. You should just not let us talk for a few minutes.
If people are wondering why we don't do this live anymore, and why sometimes while we're talking you'll suddenly see a cut and we're all in slightly different positions,
Yeah.
that's when all this stuff gets cut out.
And you could see that it's like much darker outside.
Yeah.
But okay, I will say we already started to say this, but why did I like these scenes? I don't think we spent that much time here where essentially nothing is going on. But what we do see is Alicent going off to be alone. And then in the following scene, we see her, not only is she spending time in the Kingswood, but now she's saying she's not certain she's even going to go back at all. This is the sort of, I don't want to call it subtlety because it's pretty obvious what's going on, but sometimes there's a lack of subtlety, like with Daemon. But here it just feels organic. She's leaving to be
Yes.
alone. Things aren't being spelled out. And this is, and I felt her listlessness. I felt her being lost and not knowing what to do. And I'm ready to see her do something. If she's going back now with some purpose or some idea of how to wrestle control or just do something.
Well, and we get to leave like the claustrophobic setting of these castles and see the woods, which are kind of like misty and peaceful. And it's this, it has the feel of this like princess running away from her life to go be free. Like it had like an old school, like fairy tale fantasy feel that I kind of actually enjoyed.
Yes, I agree. It's very obvious what's going on. It doesn't need to be spelled out. Everybody here understands the subtext in this scene.
Wait, what?
What was that?
What's
What's-
subtext?
I made this
Was
joke
that-
like 2 minutes too late, but Gil, you made a comment about how like you like how it's a subtle scene, but like we know what's going on. And my joke is
and
that
you're
I don't know
you're
what's
like,
going
yeah,
on.
Oh, okay.
I totally get it.
I thought
So,
you were making fun of me for spending all this time explaining the scene. When it's like,
Anyway,
you need not-
I do find, here's the thing that I'm like puzzling over is what are the options for what happens next. So either Rickard says, well, I'm gonna get in huge trouble if they find out I helped her escape even though I didn't intend to. So on the one hand, I could kind of forcibly bring her back, and that way at least I'll secure loyalty with Aemond and whatnot. That's one option. Another option is he agrees to help her. That's the other on his end. From her end, the question is where can she go? She can either change her mind and go back. She can go to Old Town to see Otto, who we don't even know what his whereabouts truly are or why he's not responding to ravens. And then the only other option is she could actually go to Dragonstone, which would be kind of crazy, but
I hope she doesn't go to Dragonstone.
yeah, I wouldn't put it
What-
past them.
What was the comment? I don't remember which scene this was in, but Darren's dragon has taken flight.
Yeah, Darren's got
Probably
a
means
dragon.
It probably means
Darren's-
it's not a baby anymore.
Yeah,
can ride it.
Alicent. So a reminder, Alicent has a son we haven't met who's in Old Town, and the update is that he's got a dragon. He's zipping around. He will soon be ready to join the war. So yeah, it's an option. She could go to Old Town. But let's go back to King's Landing. All right, we're in the courtyard. Aemond sentences a couple of Kingsguard to go to the wall for starting the riot. I put that in quotes. I believe this would be like the guy who cut off someone's hand. He's punishing them. Probably, to me again, I read this as it's so we can tell the public,
Yeah.
like, hey, those guys were messing around. We didn't want to attack any of you civilians here, so we're sending these guys to the wall.
It's the same reason Daemon cuts off Blackwood's head.
Right.
But it was kind of their fault. Like there were maybe it's an exaggeration, but like they were grossly incompetent.
They were put in a really bad situation though, and they were commanded to sheathe their swords, which meant I feel like then by the time they actually had to use them, the situation was worse than it would have been.
Yeah, to me, this is Aemond sort of shifting blame away from himself because he's got a city of people starving, and now he's telling the guards, hey, you are not allowed to let anyone leave. That is an absolute recipe for disaster. That one guy who got his hand cut off, he grabbed the queen. I think you should get your hand cut off in a violent situation, a chaotic situation. You grab the queen. Yeah. So to me, I don't know that these guards, they could have handled it better probably, but to me, there's a lot of shifting blame here from Aemond. And I think it's a sign that he is not above reproach. He makes mistakes. I don't think he understands. He's vicious. He's strong, but I don't think he understands what it means to lead a people.
Well, I mean, maybe this is just a ruthless Machiavellian move, right? Like, I guess the question is, does this help with the public at all? Right?
It
Like
might
he's
be
shifting
ruthless.
blame.
Yeah, it might be ruthless and Machiavellian, but I don't know that it was entirely planned. There's some improvisation happening here.
At least he sent them to the wall and didn't kill them, which I think is in contrast to how Aegon treated the rat catchers. And I think the public will feel the difference. Say, Aemon's version of justice is less brutal. It's still forceful and like unyielding, but it's not over the top to the point that we kind of find it revolting.
Yeah, agreed.
So he might be just bringing down a heavy hand of order onto the situation in a way that may be more digestible by the people. Although, considering they're actively being undermined by this outside force, I think it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, this really deceptive outside force, like whispering things in bars about Rhaenyra.
And sending food.
Yeah,
The
the food thing makes sense.
The funny thing is, all that we're discussing here is a very minor part of the scene. You're on them for like 2 seconds before it cuts to the main meat of the scene, which is Jasper, the master of laws on the small council, position previously held by Lionel Strong. And before that, Daemon, though we didn't actually see that. We heard about it. But Jasper approaches Larys. Jasper tells him that he heard from someone who heard from someone who heard from someone else that Sea Smoke has a new rider, which is bad news, of course. That means that Rhaenyra has a dragon, an additional dragon with a rider. So Larys is wondering, what do I do with that information? Because he knows that Larys is all about whispers. He's all about gossip, and he knows how to wield that information properly. Larys tells him, keep it to yourself. The implication being, this information is not necessarily reliable, because Jasper explains, again, he didn't witness this himself. It was a game of telephone.
The actor who plays Larys is very good, because in this scene he came across as more friendly, and it was like almost a funny scene because you have this one guy who's like, hey, I got this bit of intel, like, do you think the king will want to hear it? And like he wants to be able to spread it. And Larys kind of nicely says, maybe you should keep that one to yourself. But it doesn't have that, like, he knows how to put on this friendly face. And then, of course, once the interaction is over, Larys has this look on his face of like, now what do I do with this intel?
Right. Larys is great at time. He's always looking out for himself, and everything he does is part of some broader manipulation. But you see him being quote unquote nice in this scene, and it's almost comforting. The same way in the last episode when he's giving Aegon that pep talk, and I'm like, this guy's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so on Larys' side here. Now, why is Larys telling him to keep it to himself? My read on it is that if Aemond gets this information right now, that gives him an advantage. He can go take care of things. If all Rhaenyra has is one additional dragon, maybe she can be stopped before at the end of the episode she gets an additional 2 dragons.
Yeah, he wants Aemond to fail.
Yeah, he is undercutting Aemond because he is hitching his wagon to Aegon.
Yeah,
he wanted to be Aemond's hand. Aemond pushed him away. Okay, so I'm going to undercut him. Go to his brother, Aegon.
And Aegon is easier to control, especially now that he's so vulnerable. If he can nurse Aegon back to health, to reach like maybe a level of ability similar to what Viserys had, then he can start to pull the strings on him.
By the way, I mean, Aegon is conscious now. That's not enough for him to sit on the throne again?
I think he's still too incapacitated to really make any kind of decisions, and he would probably refuse to do so if someone asked him to.
And I think last episode they said he's sleeping 9 out of every 10 hours.
Yeah,
I'm not clear.
We were all jealous of that.
Yeah, I don't know how awake he is now, but even when he is awake, pretty much all he does is wail in pain. So I think he is mostly incapable, and in addition to that, probably unwilling to do that job.
I just said that.
Yeah, I said it. I said it better.
I don't know. I liked it better the way Gil said it.
I did too, actually.
All right, let me bring up how Larys is secretly controlling all the rats again. Let's bring that up every episode. Speaking of Larys.
Hey, I brought that up.
Speaking of Larys. Smell that, Larys? He visits Aegon, who is currently undergoing essentially physical therapy. And Larys is really pushing the pace of his recovery beyond what the Maesters recommend. And Larys essentially tells him, you're making great progress, but you got to work harder. I don't think there's much new in this scene, other than reiterating that, again, Larys really wants Aegon to get better. He is pushing for that to happen. He's helping to make that happen, but partly to, I think, his own ends, right?
It's kind of sad to think about how vulnerable Aegon is now. Like, he has no one on his side left, really. Even the Maester, he seems benevolent, but we could never fully trust him, I think, especially given like Viserys's course. So like he has no one left to advocate for him in any way, including himself, really.
And he believes that his brother is potentially plotting to kill him.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And Alicent's gone.
Yeah, that actor. I shouted out his. I forget the actor's name, but he is doing such a great job. He never have I felt a character's pain more than listening to him moan and cry and
Really?
everything. You really feel
What
it.
about the scene in 127 hours when he has
I
to
was
cut through
gonna
the
say.
nerve? Really?
Well, but that was all through. There was so much stylistic filmmaking going on with the music and the sound. This is purely an actor.
That's
It's
true.
all diegetic.
Yeah. Daniel, is that what you were trying to say?
I was gonna say 127
That's
hours
awesome.
also, but also another thing. There was an interesting line at the end of that scene, when what's his name? Laris is talking to the Maester, saying how we got to keep working on him, whatever. And then Laris makes a comment to the Maester. He says, "I'll have the Sentry give you more warning next time." And I think what that just is that like I think he's intentionally coming and like surprising Aegon. Like like he showed up in the middle of Aegon's training. I think it's to like motivate Aegon or something, or to make Aegon trust Laris more, because Laris is the one who comes there and like helps him. I don't know. I was trying to understand, and he's giving warning that he's coming. I don't know if you guys understood what that was.
Oh, I remember at the time feeling like I understood it, and now I can't remember.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a degree of I don't want people to know I'm coming here. So to some extent, he's keeping it clandestine.
Yeah. I think maybe at the very least, it just seems like obviously the two are conspiring together to like help Aegon. Like nothing more malicious than that yet.
Well, I think it's time we head over to Driftmark. Smell the sea air. Feel the
Salton
breeze.
Sea.
Rhaenyra meets with Adam, who has just acquired Sea Smoke. The two have a sort of Western-style standoff. The two dragons at their sides, staring at each other. And they're kind of eyeing each other suspiciously until Adam bends the knee, pledges fealty, and says, I didn't steal this dragon. All right? He came to me. Who am I to deny that? I'm on your side. I'm here to help you. I want to help you. She asks about his parentage. He doesn't admit that Corlys is his father. He essentially says, like, my family, we don't really keep track of, our ancestors or anything. And she's very excited by this. I think Adam doesn't truly care about Rhaenyra specifically that much. I don't think to him this is like, I can help Team Black. To me, it's more, we've seen that, Alan spells it out later in the episode, but we've seen how, or Alan spells it out, yeah, we've seen how Adam just wants greater things for himself, both in terms of material goods and riches, but he also wants to have a meaningful life and do noble things.
And I
So
think
to
the
me, this is just
character,
path
I think
for
the
it.
character in the show does too.
Nice.
Yeah. What was I going to say about this? Yeah. Well, okay. He knows who he is, though. He knows he's a Valerian. So
Well,
So why
interesting
wouldn't he
bit,
be
though.
loyal to Rhaenyra?
Well, I mean, he works for the Valerians.
No,
But
no,
he's
no,
not
he-
like.
Doesn't he know? He knows.
He
Yeah,
knows-
yeah. So okay, one second. He knows Corlys is his dad, but he's a bastard. Like I'm not sure that necessarily means he needs to be loyal to that family. It's not like they've been taking care of him. But the other bit that was interesting is that I think it's his mom who has Dragon Rider ancestry or whatever, because Corlys. There's a later scene where Corlys talking to Alan talks about his family's not Dragon Riders, and he never knew much about their mom's parentage.
Okay. Fair.
Right, and Adam, you were asking about why doesn't he admit that Corlys is his father? I don't know.
No, I wasn't even saying that. I was just
Okay.
saying if he knows he's technically part of that family, so it does seem natural that first of all, he's just like super amped that he's now a dragon rider. And I think he'll just go with whatever, like he just wants to keep the ball rolling. And like I think bending the knee there is what makes the most sense. But also it makes sense because he knows that like he knows in some respect he is descended from like a royal family, and to whatever extent he's part of that royal family, then his family is on Rhaenyra's side.
Yeah, true.
And
But-
the whole thing must kind of feel like fate to him.
This is Laenor's dragon, right? Sea
Yeah.
Smoke? So what happens if Laenor ends up coming back?
Well, here's one thing I was going to ask is I thought that a dragon will not accept a rider so long as it's the current rider is still living.
So maybe Leonor's dead.
Or
Well, we don't know
either
how-
that or that's not true, or that's not true, at least in the show.
Well, and it might be true, but it also might not be mystical. It might be, if the dragon can still
Thinks
pick
it's
up
dead.
the scent of that dragon rider. But this, Laenor's been gone for, a decade plus. He's been gone all this time. So to the dragon, it might be, Laenor's gone. Dead, I don't know, but he's no longer here. So I can take on a new dragon rider.
I think the writers just forgot.
They kind of forgot.
Kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. Well, back in Dragonstone, the council gets news of this new dragon rider. They get news that Rhaenyra wants Adam to be trained rather than punished, as Bartimaeus wants. Bartimaeus is aghast. You're letting this guy, lowborn, steal a dragon? Corlys, on the other hand, says, let's hear from the queen before we pass judgment.
Man, that guy has a stick up his moon hole.
And
You should have
Rhaenyra
said moon door that time.
Jace, on the other hand, he's pissed. Where is the queen, by the way? So they're going to have a little confrontation soon. Where is the queen? She's skipping the council meeting to hang out with Missaria, who she's taken on as a sort of... It's kind of
As
interesting.
a consort.
A consort,
you will.
Yeah. She's assigned Corlys as the new hand, but I feel like we have not really seen them talk at all, and we've hardly seen Corlys provide any kind of advice as hand, which I find
So
interesting.
Rhaenyra is Grover now, and Corlys is like the kid.
Okay,
It's
we're
like
all
just
waiting for-
it's all stationary. Nothing can happen.
And
Well,
by the
Rhaenyra-
way,
Yeah, go ahead.
Missaria and Rhaenyra never actually kissed because that scene was improvised. It's actually not canon. So you'll see it's never going to get referenced again.
All right, does everyone tell all their little jokes? Are we
Yeah.
ready to move on? Rhaenyra is in high spirits. She thinks that maybe Sea Smoke choosing Adam was ordained. And she has hope now that we can find others. Because if you recall last episode, they tried to put somebody on a dragon and it went horribly. Now with Adam, she sees it can be done. We can get more dragon riders. Where do we find other dragon riders? Missaria has a great idea. The Targaryens have spent
It's like
plenty of...
like Rhaenyra and Missaria making plans. It's like Pinky and the Brain, and they just like they get to execute their little scheme every episode.
Well, Missaria, she gets a little smile and she says, Targaryens, they spend a lot of time in the bowels of pleasure dens. A lot of bastards running around out there. Rhaenyra, she's worried about fealty, honor. Do these bastards even care about us? Missaria tells her that the order of things have changed. Why not embrace it? Which, remember, Rhaenyra, back in episode 2 last season, when Rhaenys was telling her, this realm will never accept a female on the throne. And then Rhaenyra told her, I'm going to change the order of things. And now Missaria says back to her, the order of things has changed. And so Rhaenyra pronounces, for 20 years, the lords of this realm levied insults at my sons behind my back, because their sons are bastards. Well then, let us raise an army of bastards. Which I will say, I think that's a pretty cool line. I think it's got a lot packed into it, because it's her kind of rebelling against the realm, which is what she tends to do, what she has to do. It speaks to the class lines in Westeros and sort of breaking them down. These people who are unimportant now get a chance to be important. We're going to ignore tradition. The only thing I wish is that there were some bastards we cared about.
Yeah,
This is what we're going to talk about later, but pointing the camera at Adam occasionally, Ulf, and Hugh is not enough to make me excited of like, we're going to see them rise up. They've been looked down upon all season. They're the underdogs. So I like the line, but the context makes me just sort of not care that much.
Let's like contrast it with something else. Do you remember Hot Pie?
Yes.
Everyone
he was-
loved him and
Yeah,
cared
explain
about him
who
as
he
a
was. He
character.
was like
we were
a-
actually he was just a fellow. Okay, I'm not gonna remember everything, but when Arya had to flee Winterfell and basically pretend to be a boy, she ended up with this maybe I don't think it was the Brotherhood without banners, but like some like roving group that was like heading toward King's. I don't know. I don't know all the specifics, but basically it was just a bunch of commoners like along with some like more military types, and Hot Pie was among them. And he just became like one of Arya's friends and liked making food. And he made that loaf of bread that looked like a werewolf, you know, once he found out that Arya was actually a Stark. And like we actually got invested in him, even though he was a side character. But it took time, and the writers really had to work to get that to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that with this.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when she said like let us have an army of bastards, I thought that was cool. And I think the whole bastard thing appeals to us because it gives you this feeling of like an underdog trying to make something of themselves. That's what made Jon Snow for a while like the most compelling character on Game of Thrones, and it's what made like Theon's plotline, even though like somehow they had me rooting for him after all the atrocities that he committed. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
and again, it comes from him being a bastard and having this like insecurity and feeling that he has to prove himself.
Yeah, and I
Theon's
think
not
it
a
is.
bastard.
Not yeah, I guess you're right. He's not technically a bastard, but he feels like one because he was basically a ward of the Stark.
Yeah.
So yeah,
He's similarly cast aside.
yeah.
And I think
well, it's like Tyrion Lannister too. Basically, like the black sheep of the family.
yeah.
Tyrion's not a bastard. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it's pretty clear that these writers are capable of doing it because what you just described about Theon, I'm starting to feel a little bit of that for Aegon. Like just seeing him suffer,
Yeah.
seeing Larys try to sort of prop him up. Part of me does end up rooting for him to just crawl out of the hole he's in now, out of the moon hole, if you will.
I'm sure all three of us were thinking of saying that.
So it does seem to be a matter of just how do we fit this into the season and into the episodes. But we'll talk a little bit more about it later. Go
I
ahead.
need them to jam all these random characters in the show. Like I need a moon door in my head.
Well, Corlys, he pays Adam a visit. Wow, you've really come up in the world, huh? Well done. That's pretty much the extent of the scene. Corlys seems proud of his son, Adam.
He
but
like
is
still
yet-
can't. Yeah, go ahead.
He won't acknowledge him as a son.
What a wuss.
Yeah. It seemed...
Like his wife is dead at this point anyway, and she was fine with it.
Well, and now we're like about to... I guess the word hasn't gotten around yet, this whole raise an army of bastards thing. But if ever there was a green light to acknowledge this is my son, we're just about there.
But,
Well, and you gotta-
like
You all right?
okay,
over there?
look at the okay. Why can't Corlys say anything? Is it because he's ashamed that he like committed adultery? Is he ashamed that he allowed them to grow up as bastards and that he wasn't there for them? We don't know. He's just like he just gets awkward and nervous about it, and we don't know why. Meanwhile, you look at the pain that Ned Stark went through over Jon Snow, who turned out not even to actually be, his bastard, but he played.
Yeah,
the part.
maybe that's why. Maybe these actually aren't his bastards. They're his like brother's bastards, and he's
they're
been
just
hiding
doing
it
the
for 2
same
decades.
thing. They're doing the exact same plot again.
Yeah,
They're
like-
both salt and sea and fire and ice.
Yeah, to me, the time that we've spent on the common folk, Hugh, Ulf, and them, I almost think you'd been better off just forget about them and instead spend more time with characters who are actually characters, like Corlys. Dig into this a little bit more. And you might say, well, then the whole Ulf and Hugh thing would come out of nowhere at the end. But I have more thoughts on that, but I'll save it for when we get to that scene. Okay, let's go back to... So we're done with Driftmark. Let's go back to Dragonstone. So remember, Jace is not happy with Rhaenyra at the moment. He's pretty pissed off. So why? He approaches her. He confronts her. Essentially, he says that you're cheapening Targaryen blood. If anyone can ride a dragon, what makes us special? And then he shows how personal it is to him because he obviously knows that he himself is a bastard. But the thing that set him apart from all the others, again, is that he can ride a dragon. And now she's taking that away from him. She tries to reassure him, essentially saying, "Hey, look, I'm not that jazzed about everything we're doing here, but clearly the gods are laying it all out in front of me." She is starting to believe that this is all preordained because she had this idea, let's get other people to ride dragons. It didn't work. And then all of a sudden, Adam shows up on Sea Smoke. So to her, this is destiny. It's what she is meant to do. Jace seems unconvinced, leaves in a huff. Now, I'll say, clearly all of this is very personal to Jace, and he's making this appeal from an emotional place. But if you parse through everything he says, I think there are a couple of genuinely good points. One that we've talked about already, which is you are cheapening Targaryen blood. You are showing the people of Westeros we are less special than you thought. Dragons, perhaps, are not the gods you thought they were. One of them just got killed. And now you're taking that a step further. In addition to that, he points out that these lowborns have no personal tie to Rhaenyra. You're counting on them to support you and to have fealty toward you, but they didn't grow up in the noble family alongside you. So you're sort of just trusting them blindly. And I think that's a good point.
Well, and think about this. By the time Game of Thrones is happening, dragons haven't been spotted in hundreds of years. And like presumably it's this war that's going to just tear them all apart and destroy them. And leave the world without these gods that the people look up to and like gives them a sense that there's something greater going on in this world.
Oh, there was actually, just related to that, there's a cool line when the the dragon maesters, like whoever those like Valyrian people were responsible for the dragons.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, the Dragon Keepers.
The Dragon Keepers, they make one of them makes a really cool comment about how the dragons are the last bit of magic in this horrible world or something. And that storyline of like disappearing magic in the world is really cool.
Yeah, I always find that stuff fascinating. And I also just love, like, no matter the context, seeing someone stand up for a principle, I always just find satisfying.
Yeah.
So when they're like, dragons are not playthings for the games of men, Games of Thrones, and they storm out. But we're not quite there yet. So Mysaria gives the message to Alan. Get your boats ready, go to King's Landing, bring a bunch of boats, and then spread the word that we're looking for bastards.
Grab every blonde you can see.
And Alan's like, sure, I can do that. So back to go to King's Landing. Word gets out. Ulf hears about it. And I've actually found this pretty hilarious. Is he keeps boasting about how he's a Targaryen. And now when push comes to shove, and it's like, well, you can go to Dragonstone and potentially claim a dragon. And he's like, you've all been taken in, lads. This is all BS. And then they're like, they convince him it's true. And he's like, well, now that you mention it, I kind of stubbed my toe earlier. I don't know if I can really go through with this. And then finally he admits, he's like, look, I don't know if I'm a Targaryen, okay? I've been saying that, but I can't really know for sure. And the whole bar kind of cheers him on, and he gets cajoled into going.
That was a fun scene.
Yeah.
I like that scene. Then cut to Hugh. Apparently, we didn't know this, but he's also a bastard. He just never told his wife about it. He is Viserys and Daemon's cousin, but he wanted to make his own way in the world.
Sure. How did his mom, who was the sister of Viserys's father or mother, one of those, how did she end up working in a brothel?
Look, she went down bad choice road. One thing led to another.
I started digging into this history so I could explain it to you guys, and then I was like, it doesn't matter. He's a bastard. Who cares?
You're gonna see spoilers because, like, if you just look up a Targaryen family tree, like, I have had to resist. I've spent all my willpower for the last 2 years just resisting looking at a family tree to untangle this mess because I'm worried about spoilers.
That's like in the show Dark, where a lot of that show is about who's related to who. There's one episode where they show a family tree for a second, and if you freeze frame, it actually spoils a lot of stuff. But it's not exactly spoiling because most people aren't pausing and scouring through it, unless you're, a YouTuber like me.
Oh, Guy Incognito gave the answer, which actually I've heard this before. I think I can share. It's just backstory. It's not
Sure,
spoilers.
go ahead.
King Jaehaerys basically disowned her for promiscuity, and she was sent to become a septa, one of those religious people, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But
it's
she
like a
ran
nun.
away and then opened a brothel.
All right, there you go. And people will pay extra for somebody with that unique white Targaryen
Oh, don't
hair.
I know it?
We also find-
is what Daniel would say. To you.
We also hear offhand that Hugh and his wife's daughter has died. I really felt that because I was very invested in that
I
storyline.
really felt it because of how they just said it.
It was very impactful. I cried during that scene.
So they couldn't keep her alive. Hugh could not keep his daughter alive, but now if he goes and rides a dragon, he could at least provide for his wife. She could finally be a lady, and she doesn't want him to go, but he feels compelled. He feels the tug of destiny.
The Targaryen tug.
Sorry, but this speech of his, like, oh yeah, I'm a Targaryen. It's, my mom's. I'm their cousin. Like, God. Anyway.
I know, so powerful. All right, well, Ulf, Hugh, and a bunch of bastards.
Oh,
they go
God.
They go to
Wait,
dragons.
Sorry, but the scene of all these blonde people walking to the boat, and then all the blonde people on the boat, and all the blonde people walking from the boat to Dragonstone, it was just so cringy.
Well, it's like playing
just-
Lemmings.
Also, wait, aren't they not supposed to leave the city?
Well,
No,
they snuck
I guess
through
they're
it,
not.
yeah.
They're not like protecting the entire coast. I guess.
Yeah,
They're just-
Missaria,
they're just
she's
blocking
got
the walls.
Missaria has ways to sneak everybody out. All right.
They turn into rats temporarily. They crawl through the sewers.
Oh, it turns out, by the way, this is very important to get right. Hugh's mother was not sent to the Septa. She was sent to be the Silent Sisters. Those people,
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
Morticians, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guy
Thank
Incognito.
Thank you, Guy
That's a-
Incognito. But don't let it happen again.
That's a huge punishment. I mean, if you join them, you can never speak ever again.
Daniel,
If you don't make a comment, now I see mean.
it's a new job opening, Daniel, for you.
I'm
But
sorry,
also,
Guy Incognito.
it would be to join the sept, which is like the church, and to be a septa would be like the nun.
So we go to Dragonstone.
I just don't want everyone to think we're idiots.
I think that ship has sailed. Ulf, Hugh, and a bunch of bastards. They go to Dragonstone.
A bunch of blondes.
The Dragon Keepers, we alluded to this already. Dragon Keepers call it blasphemy. This is my favorite exchange here, actually. Rhaenyra is like, the gods brought them here. The Dragon Keeper's like, you brought them here. And they will not take part in this. They all leave. Rhaenyra gives the dragons seeds, kind of a polite way of saying bastards, gives them all a speech. You might die, but if you live, you will not be the same. That was what Gandalf said in the Hobbit movie, from the trailer. I never watched the actual movie. But this is your chance. You will serve a noble cause. We will bring the enemy to heel. Because if we get 2 more dragons, they will not dare fight us. They'll just give up. Suffering will end. The war will end. And we don't have to drop any more blood. There's 2 dragons to be claimed. There's Vermithor, the largest in the realm after Vhagar. Then there's Silverwing. They're going to start with the biggest one, Vermithor. So Rhaenyra takes everybody, takes all the volunteers, sticks them all right in front of the dragon, and then she goes to watch safely from the balcony.
1 second. 1 second. She brings them all in there. She shoves them in and she goes, there is nothing else I can do for you.
Yeah.
And then leaves. Really? There's
It's almost
nothing else?
like
I have
contempt.
gone this far, but I can go no further.
You can't prepare them at all? And you
You
can't,
can't-
send
What
them in
about going-
one at a time?
Exactly, one by one.
She
I
doesn't
don't know.
have
She
time for
must
that.
have. She must have like read into like the lore of how the dragons work. Like maybe they needed to see all of them together so they could pick. You know.
Yeah,
You can definitely justify it with like, I'm leaving it to the gods. I'm rolling the dice. And it just, I don't know. It's hard though.
I mean, Gil, this is like when I was like a kid, if there was like something that annoyed me in a movie, you would always say, I could come up with some pseudoscience to explain it, whatever. Here, you could come up with some pseudo magic to explain this. But like, it shouldn't feel that dumb. And also, it felt like cruel. Like, Rhaenyra shoving them in there felt like exceedingly cruel for her character also.
Yeah, it is like watching her just stand on the balcony safely while these people are all getting burned alive and ripped
Felt
apart.
out of character.
Yeah.
I wonder
Well, this
if
whole
is
scene. Go ahead.
if this is how it was done in Fire and Blood.
Like, most of this stuff is left pretty vague, so I'm guessing like they just got the headline in the book, like Rhaenyra found another dragon rider, and then they filled in the details. But yeah, I'd be curious. Maybe I'll look into that.
Too bad they don't just have like a 23andMe Westeros edition.
just check everybody's.
Yeah.
No, that didn't really seem to work. I mean, even if you have the blood, it seems like it takes more than that. They do try to leave it somewhat mysterious, right? Why a dragon chooses a dragon rider.
But I do feel like if I were a dragon and somebody shoved like 60 people in front of me, I'd just kill them all too. I'd be annoyed.
I'd be like, I am not a plaything.
I think
we're not-
Vermithor chose Hugh because of his like man bun and beard. And who's the other one? Silverwing?
Yeah, Silverwing.
Silverwing chose Ulf because Silverwing, I guess, is more playful, and Ulf is kind of an oaf. And it, like she was like having fun, like nosing at him and tipping him over and playing around with him, in like a playful, affectionate way, which is kind
Yeah,
of
after
funny.
he killed one of her
And-
babies.
Well, I think she
Oh,
hated that.
yeah.
She hated that one. She's like, that egg's gonna suck.
The look
And then
on
Ulf stepped on it, so she was like, thank you.
it's like as much criticism as we have for how these characters are being progressed. Like the actors are doing a good job. Ulf, as like casting wise, is good. I thought it was pretty funny. Like I was laughing out loud at his face when he realized he stepped on the egg, and it's like, okay, I already knew I was dead, but now I'm really dead.
Well, he gives up. He once the
Yeah.
dragon knocks him down, he closes his eyes and just prepares for death.
Yeah,
Well, so we kind of
so it was
skipped
like
past it, but
it was like a fun scene. It makes you like Ulf more, and also I think Hugh's going to turn out to not be such a good guy.
yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Hugh has reason. Well, it's complicated because Hugh has a lot of reason to be angry at the Greens because they promised him money, they didn't give it, and now his daughter is dead.
Oh,
So, go ahead.
sorry, but Hugh did protect that woman from the dragon.
Right.
So we've seen very little from Hugh. I guess we did also
We've
see
seen
Hugh
him steal
beat-
food.
Yeah, we've seen him steal food multiple times and beat somebody in the street.
No,
but
we've
his
seen him
daughter
steal
was-
food. We've seen him steal food once. The first time that it was actually Ulf who stole the potato or apple, but we
No,
did
no,
see
but-
him punch someone and take lettuce.
That's what I mean. So Hugh stole in a non-aggressive way, more in like I'm like a trickster.
No,
kinda
no,
like
Hugh
I'm-
punched a guy.
Yeah,
Ulf
Hugh's
stole
the
in-
one-
Sorry. I meant Ulf. Ulf is the one who stole in a non-violent manner.
Yeah.
Hugh is the one who was aggressive, and
Right.
it makes me think he's more of a loose cannon and will not be very dependable.
And I have to point out on the official podcast, one of the co-hosts said, "Am I the only one who until now thought Hugh and Ulf were the same person?" So I am in good company. Well, I'm in company.
You're in company.
All right, let's rewind a little bit, just briefly recap what happened here. Right, so you get all the dragon seeds in front of Vermithor. One guy volunteers, as expected. He gets burned alive, along with a lot of other people nearby. Vermithor seems to go on a rampage, eating people, killing people. Hugh, like you said, Daniel, saves a girl's life, pushes her out of the way. Vermithor goes to kill her anyway, but he starts yelling, gets the dragon's attention, keeps the dragon away from that girl. And then he yells, "Come on!" Claimed the
That was
dragon.
good.
Thank you. Then
No,
Ulf.
man, I liked when the character did it.
Oh,
Yours
Before
was good,
Ulf, in general, this scene was sick though. Like the way it was shot.
sorry, I just had to get rid of it in there. So go ahead.
Just everybody running around in this like cave with the dragon like looking around, like killing people. Like I thought it was extremely well done. It was super cool.
Yeah, from what I've seen, a lot of people took issue with other parts of the episode, but it's generally agreed this was a great sequence. It's a tense sequence. Personally, I mean, just to be completely honest, like I can logically look at it and say visually, this is really well done. It looks awesome. I honestly felt nothing because Hugh and Ulf. This is what the writer said, the showrunner. He said, "I didn't want this to feel like you've got Hugh, Ulf, and then a bunch of red shirts." Red shirts is a reference to Star Trek, where anytime they introduced a new character wearing a red shirt, you knew they would die, and you didn't care because they were basically an NPC, a non-player character. To me, they didn't pull it off. I mean, Hugh and Ulf are the only two characters that have had any presence in this season. They had enough of a presence that I knew they were important, so I knew they would live and everybody else would die pretty much. But they didn't have enough of a presence that I felt connected to them in any way. I wasn't rooting for them. I simply knew what the outcome of the scene would be. And
Yeah.
we've said a couple times that with the common folk storyline, they're doing so little of focusing on them that it feels out of place and it doesn't feel very effective. They either need to do more to really connect us with these characters or just say, forget it. Let's just stick to the POV of the characters we are with. So, for example, you could have done this scene with Rhaenyra where the tension is not who's going to live. The tension is, will this work or not? The tension is, I'm sending a bunch of people to slaughter and I'm crossing a moral boundary to do that. The tension is, I'm doing something crazy and unheard of. And I think instead of doing that, which could have been done because we're with Rhaenyra, instead we're with Hugh and Ulf, who to me are just characters I don't care about at all. And it feels like a predetermined outcome. I know they're going to get the dragons.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why have we been pointing the camera at them throughout the season sometimes?
I can't think of a single character on this show that if they died, I would feel like any sense of grief. I would feel like if Larys died, I would be disappointed because he's the smartest character on the show. The same with Otto, like close second. But when Ned Stark died, it like twisted my heart, you know, and like even to a lesser extent because the show was already going off the rails a little bit. But when Jon Snow got like killed, he later got revived, and we all kind of like predicted how it was going to happen. But it was a shock, and I felt a sense of loss, not just for the sake of the story, but because this character that I was really invested in and rooting for was just like murdered. I just don't have that for anyone on the show.
Yeah, which we went into this season talking about how we didn't really talk about it as a criticism, more of an observation and a challenge for the show, which is there are very few characters, if any, to root for because they've all done horrible things. There's nobody that seems to be purely noble. So there's not many people we're rooting for, and it's a challenge. And go ahead, Adam.
Well, like I'm rooting for Team Black. I'm rooting for Rhaenyra. I know that they're correct in terms of what Viserys's wishes were, and I know that the Song of Ice and Fire is a true prophecy. So like, there's reasons to root for Team Black, but I don't feel like a sense of attachment to them.
Yeah, agreed. I think the thing that keeps you watching is sort of the fascination with these characters, wanting to understand, watching the changing loyalties and allegiances, watching the changing motivations.
Yeah, like, I just want to see what happens.
Right. There's like a curiosity, but there's not a lot of hope. You're hoping for an outcome, but not to the same degrees we did in Game of Thrones.
My hopes in between episodes, the hopes that I have to do with I hope the writers don't screw this up.
Right.
So like already I'm not bought in, because it used to be that my hopes were occurring within the universe of the show. It wasn't. Now I'm watching it with this like critical evaluative perspective, and I don't think it's just something wrong with me. I think like like even as recently as Better Call Saul, I was able to watch a show and actually feel gripped by it. And when I would think about it between episodes, I was thinking in the show's terms. I wasn't thinking about the creation of it.
I think you're right. It's not just something wrong with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think there's we're doing a podcast about it, so we're in the mode of critiquing, but not really. I mean, when I watch the show, I try to turn my brain off and I experience it emotionally. And then afterward, I try to untangle, why did I feel that way? Why did I react that way?
Well, and if this was a podcast about, let's say it was a decade ago and this was a podcast talking about Game of Thrones, season 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, we wouldn't be going scene by scene and complaining and talking about how something could have been done better. Like, we would just be talking about, like, what do you think this character is going to do? What do you think that character is going to do? What do you hope this happens or that happens?
Why did they do that?
Yeah. But instead, like, I don't know, I think we can't suspend our disbelief enough to do that for this. We can do it in bits, you know? And like, I want to be able to, because I love that feeling of like being that into a show. And we're getting little tastes of it, but I need more.
Yeah. Any more on this scene?
Next scene.
Let's go to the next scene. All right.
Yeah.
Back in King's Landing, they're having a council meeting. We talked about this already. They're going over how they got word from Old Town. They're fighting with the Beesburys. We knew about that. This is where they get the good news that Darren's got a dragon, will soon be ready to join the war. But they're interrupted by commotion. What the hell's going on? There's a dragon outside. Ulf is going for a joyride over King's Landing. And he looked absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But anyway, within the context of the show, it's not a criticism. I thought that looked funny. And also a little ridiculous. But Aemon runs out, gets on his dragon, and he's like, we gotta take care of this jerk that's on a dragon all of a sudden. He's heading toward Dragonstone. He's pursuing them. But then he sees that Rhaenyra has got Silverwing, Vermithor, Syrax. He sees the additional dragons. And he has to pull on his own dragon, Vhagar, and say, flee, go back. He retreats because he sees they're in trouble. Rhaenyra's got more dragons than before. Rhaenyra is standing with the dragons behind her, looking very smug. Credits.
So, Dragonstone and King's Landing are that close to each other?
No, they're 400 miles away.
The dragons can fly very
Why
fast.
did it feel like it was like right across, like a little
Yeah,
channel?
how awkward was the entire flight of like Vhagar right behind Ulf the entire way?
It's 400 miles?
Yeah.
Hold on, in our Discord,
We looked up how fast dragons travel.
Wait, I saw them discuss this in the Omar and Ekitanama. I never know how to say his name. They were discussing this, and they might have looked into this. Let me see. I guess this is live. I should stop.
No,
scrolling through
while
it.
you're doing that, I can just share some of my, just to defend the scene a little bit. I liked that they put Aemond in a position to have to get Vhagar under control. And it didn't look easy, and it looked like he might not actually be able to. And as usual, we're being reminded that these beings have a will of their own. And I mean, Aemond especially is aware that Vhagar can act without him really making the command.
Yeah, I like the scene, Adam, for the same reason. Especially with Aemond, we haven't seen him retreat from a fight. We haven't seen him look nervous in a long time. And so watching him kind of have to pull the dragon back, I thought was very effective. And it made me excited for the next episode, just to see him shift in that power position.
Yeah.
I also think, okay, let me go back to the distance thing. I don't think there was like an awkward 20 minutes of him riding right behind Ulf. I think it was more like he saw Ulf go in the direction of Dragonstone. So he's like, let me go to Dragonstone. And it's a quick cut, so it seems close, but we don't have to see the entire flight over there. But yeah, I like the scene for that reason.
That was cool when he had to pull back. But man, Ulf is just like such an idiot. I mean, I assume he's not controlling the dragon, really.
Hey, why did he
But-
go to King's Landing?
I assume he's not in control. The dragon chose to go there. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, how would he know how to steer?
I
It
mean,
seems-
seems pretty straightforward.
He's
It doesn't seem that hard.
he's almost certainly never been on a horse either, or even like a bicycle.
You pull on the left if you want to go left. You pull right to go right. I mean,
What about up and down?
Yeah.
that I've never been clear on. I don't know.
What about what he doesn't know how to say Dracarys?
He's probably
Yeah,
heard
I'm
it before.
surprised none of these bastards tried saying Dohaeris. Like, they didn't hear it and say, like, oh, let me try saying this.
Oh, that means like calm or whatever, right?
No, Dohaeris is serve, Lakiri is calm, I think.
Yeah, but even if he
Like,
could say
they-
serve, it's like serve, and the dragon's like, okay, serve what? Do what do you want me to do? And he's like,
It's like when Aegon responds not being able to speak Valyrian. Like serve
I
Yeah.
can't make
war?
to do war. Yeah, I think that smirk also on Rhaenyra's face. I think it's probably gonna get wiped off her face soon, because now Aemond is. I mean, look, you've got
Oh,
two
he-
more dragons. To me, I mean, when she told the dragon seeds like this is gonna end the war, that's not true at all. I mean, they already got one of their dragons killed. Okay, great. You've got two more. Yes, Vermithor's big, second biggest dragon in the realm beside Vagar. I think this war is far from won, though.
So wait, they have 3 dragons, and then how many does Team Green have? They got
They got-
Aemon's, Darren's. They only have
Well,
Is that it? I don't know.
oh,
They only have
Aegon's is
Vagar?
dead. Does Helena have one?
She might. I think Helena has a
can't-
dragon,
she-
but she's
Yeah.
not a warrior.
You're not supposed on the live stream.
Yeah, we
You
should
don't
only
ask
talk
a
about
question.
stuff.
If I don't
Sorry.
bring it up, assume I don't know it. We'll look into this before the next episode, maybe. Well, any final thoughts on the episode?
Wait,
The
so
closing
we
shot
covered
was
both
cool.
teams, right?
Yeah. What are you talking
I
about?
know. Well, because when we don't do it live, we always end up taking like little breaks, and like one person's like, you know what, let me just use the bathroom real quick, but then everyone else is like, I'm gonna get a drink, I'm gonna go do that.
Right.
And so
Wait, so we're done?
right. It
Why do you look so
felt-
excited?
No, it felt so fast that I was like, did we really actually talk about the whole thing?
Yeah, no, he's normally, if the episode's an hour and a half, we were recording for over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And usually there's even more complaining at the beginning.
I don't know if
feel
that's
like
true.
I've just like feel like I've said every complaint I can say at this point.
I'm sure we could think of more.
I mean, I was
All right,
thinking of
let's-
some as we were talking about it, but it's like, what's the point anymore? Everyone knows what I'm going to say.
Right. Well, okay. Like I said, overall, I
And-
don't think that. Go ahead, Adam.
I like the show.
We believe you.
It's like
I believe
I
you
just
like
have the
show.
pain of seeing, like I know how good it could be.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I said, I don't think this episode was like worse than the previous ones, but just my issues with the show were attached to something more important. So it was more disappointing to me. Like this scene of Ulf and Hugh claiming dragons, I'm seeing it talked about as like the centerpiece of the season. Wow, what an amazing scene. And I don't know, I'm a little FOMO,
Man.
a little fear,
Well,
you know,
because
that I don't
you
get to
can't
experience
disconnect.
that.
You can't disconnect from the context in which it's happening.
Right.
I mean, imagine like if they had really built up those characters. Like imagine like I don't know, Tyrion getting a dragon. Like, I don't know. It could have been so much cooler.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, I'm still looking forward to the next episode. That's the finale of season 2. And normally with Game of Thrones, it was always the second to last episode of the season was the big one. That's where you have the battle, and then the finale was usually sort of an epilogue. It was sort of the aftermath. I don't know if that's what they're doing here. If that's the case, then you've got these dragons claimed, and we're not really going to see much fallout until next season. I don't really know what to expect. To me, this feels like setup for something consequential and action-packed next episode. But I wouldn't be too disappointed if that's not the case. I'm just curious to see where things go next. Curious to see what happens next with Alicent and what Aemond decides to do in response to this. I would love if we saw Otto again before
Yeah.
the season's over. I don't know if we will, but we'll see.
Really?
Bro, he's
But
got to
then,
come
like,
back in the finale.
Because like the last time we saw him, like I don't know, you would think if it was the last time we were seeing him for a long time, they would have put more oomph behind it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes they don't. It's just the way the
just
realm
life.
goes.
For all my complaining about this episode, I am very sad that the season's going to be over next week.
Yes. Well, okay, so let's wrap this up. So this, I can't believe it's Friday. It's so much later than we normally do this. So the finale is going to be out in 2 days on Sunday. I am trying to pull us together for a live stream, perhaps a live stream before the episode, good old-fashioned watch party, talk about the season overall, get hyped for the finale, And then after the finale, doing a good old fashioned live instant take.
I have
And
an
then
idea.
Go ahead.
Actually, wait, no. Keep pimping that first.
All right. And then, as always, we would do a full take later in the week. Because this is the finale, I'm going to try to get that out as soon as possible after the episode airs.
Well, yeah, but I interrupted one of the exciting. We're gonna do our best to live stream afterward too, so we can do the immediate reactions.
Right. So that would mean probably live stream around 8 p.m. Eastern time. So an hour before the episode airs. Get excited. Episode goes on at 9. And then we would go live at like 10:15 or 10:30 after the episode to give our immediate reaction to it. And then later in the week, we would do the usual full take.
And here's an idea
Mm-hmm.
for the pre-finale watch party hype up session. I will not complain about the show.
I
I will
agree. I don't
get
think we
into
should.
it. I will get pumped up. I will get excited.
Let's focus on the positive. We talk about all. Is there stuff we love this season? Stuff we loved last season? Let's focus on the positive. Get excited for the finale.
We're just gonna bleep out any complaining.
Oh, I forgot. I almost forgot to mention we're having a contest, an exciting contest. YouTube has done something really cool. They like the work we're doing over here. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that because that's not part of it. Well, YouTube, they sent me a free small Domino's pizza in the form of a gift card. I want to, you guys, the fans, you're the ones who've made this happen. So I want to give it back to you. So if you want that pizza, write an email to gil@onetake.tv. I'll put that in the description, in the show notes, and in a pinned comment. Write me an email with the subject line pizza. And then in the body of the email, tell me what you're going to do with that pizza if you win.
So you're doing it's one person gets it's the whole pizza. It's not slice. We're not distributing slices, right?
I might take a bite first. Whatever's left, you can have. So yeah, send me
You can take a sample of the DNA he leaves when he takes that bite, and you can see if he's a Targaryen.
That's right. So gil@onetake.tv, subject line pizza, body of the email. What are you going to do with that pizza? And one lucky winner will get. I'm not going to take a bite. It's digital. It's a gift card. It's a code. And I guess you go to Domino's and you.
This
you
is a big deal because
This way,
YouTube stopped sending out plaques.
Wait,
Is that
what?
true?
This is what they do now. This is the equivalent of that silver plaque.
Wait, YouTube stopped sending out plaques?
They're sending out pizzas now.
Daniel, I think this is part of a bit.
Yeah.
So listen, you win. This is how you redeem it, from what I understand. You go to the Domino's, you kick the door open, and you scream at the top of your lungs the code that I'm going to send you. And then I guess they bring you a pizza pie. It'll all be in the email.
And
if
you have to
win,
yell
don't
at
worry.
them that you're an amazing human being because you subscribe to One Take.
And then you say Dracarys, and you walk out of there.
You could try setting fire to the place.
No, we can't. We cannot say, hey, listen, guy, everyone listening, we can't tell you to set fire to the Domino's. I don't know why you would. They're giving you free pizza. All right. I think that's our sign to wrap this up.
All right.
Yeah. All right. I'm Gil.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Adam.
Dracarys.
Dracarys.